G'day, I'm Neil and my handle is Wiley11. I'm just going to put my disclaimer here. Whatever I do and say on these videos is well-intentioned and well-meaning advice. I accept no liabilities whatsoever for any disclosures. If you take some advice or act on something that I'm saying on these videos, you do so entirely at your own risk. I'm doing it based on my experience. These videos are my attempt to give back to YouTube for the help and assistance that YouTube has given me. So once again, you follow along or follow advice from these videos entirely at your own risk. Okay, and if you're not happy to do that, click this off and off you go. Because this is purely my attempt to give back to YouTube, as I said, for the help and advice that I have received out of YouTube. So this is just my little attempt to give back. If you're happy to follow along at your own risk, buckle up, sit in. Let's get into it. Yeah, g'day, welcome back. I've had a bit of a break for health reasons. I've not been tracking very well, but I've kept moving forward, and I'm getting back to a point where I've made decisions about just keep going and don't worry about the health. So for those who are interested, I'm anemic and I run out of energy at the end of the day. So I'm getting through a day and then I'm just completely spent. So that's my life at the moment. But that said, it's because I'm bleeding somewhere and they don't know where, and they're doing things to try to find the bleed and stop it. So that's what's going on. I wanted to just apologise for the lengthy delay in posting. I've been busy with night glow manufacturing. I've been busy with all sorts of things in terms of just community outreach. So it's not that I have not been doing my outreach. I've actually been doing it, but I've been just directing my efforts into things other than YouTube. And let's face it, YouTube can survive fine without me. Right, well, all that said, today I want to talk about what happens once I want to do an epilogue on the 3D printer. So this will be the 3D printer epilogue. So what do you do once you've built your 3D printer and you can use it? Well, I'm going to show you something. I'm just going to show you what I've done. Right here and now, I'm going to put a link to my business, nightglowmanufacturing.com. I'd like you to support it. If you support it, I can keep doing these outreach videos and we can keep moving forwards. Okay, so let's get back to this. I'm going to swap cameras, so just give me a sec. What I wanted to do was show you the kind of software you could use to get yourself going in 3D printing. This is a free open source product, which, as you can see, asks you to donate. They are a worthy institution, so if you feel so inclined, please donate to them. That's something I've done. The software is called OpenSCAD, and if you go into the downloads page, you can see it has a Mac OS and it has Windows. And it gives you the Linux to get the Linux as well. It's slightly different in the Mac. So, they're an open source organisation, and I love that they are open source. And what I have done is I have downloaded it, and here it is. Eventually. Now, in Windows, there's a little trick to installing it, but make sure you follow the prompts exactly so that you get this version of the OpenSCAD with the latest release. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do is start a new SCAD, but I don't want to. I don't want to really start it from scratch. What's a good way to do this? I guess we can do my project test box. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we're going to build it, and then we're going to see what's so special about it. So this is copyright to me, so please don't go copying my code. But you can see here it's got modules. Alright, it's got comments in a similar way to, I think, Visual Basic has these. It's a little bit of a crossover between C and Visual Basic because it's simplified. It's a cut down language, but it's essentially a script. So what I needed was a project box for my programmer. And here it is. As you can see, it's a straight up box. It's got some supports for my circuit board. It's got basically a bottom on it and an open top. So it's just something to hold the circuit board so I can program things. And I'll show you a little picture of the finished product in a minute. So you can see here, it started out with my NGEM lens. It actually needs to be NGEM. So what I've done is I've borrowed code from something else I've used. So here what I do is I give it some XYZ dimensions and a thickness. Then I give it the script. Okay, I've really mucked up with this thing. This isn't what I used. This is something else because I can see there it's got sharks. It's importing a logo and asking it to put the logo on the thing. These are all variables, right? I've got a text message. I'm not using any of this stuff, so this can all be deleted. But let's not worry about that. So these are all inputs. Here we go, build it. So what I'm doing is I'm rotating it upside down so it sits on the bed of my printer. And the holders are in here. So this is what OpenSCAD looks like. It's actually a poor man's CAD system. And you can see it's quite versatile. You can make all sorts of shapes with it. So this was my project box, and what we're going to do is we're going to build this. And we're probably not going to use this. As you can see, there's a lot of code in it that we're not using. But all of these modules, here's my PCB support. Here there's a thing called get logo, which we don't use. Here's my PCB holder. So these two things we use. LDR lens, well, we're not using that. Switch hole, we're not using that. We're not using standoffs or screw holes. We're not using any of this stuff. We're not using text. We're not using letter block. We're not using any of that. We're using a chassis. So this is where we build the chassis. This is where we place our supports. This is where we place text if we place the PCB. So you can see what we're doing. We're actually building objects and methods within a script. So that's it. That's what I'm saying. We're building objects and methods within a script, and that's it. That's what we're up to. Okay, let me move forwards. I'm looking for the okay, so that didn't go quite as well as I'd hoped it would. I'm using some convoluted ways to do screen capturing because I've got no money. I'm doing it with ice cream screen recorders freebie thing which cuts out after 5 seconds. Once I get a bit of money together, I'm going to buy that product so I can just record my screen without worrying about the cutouts. So I'm not sure whether the sound lines up with the video or whatever. That said, I'm looking to get my videos, what's the word? In sync is the word I'm chasing. But what I was attempting to show you was that OpenSCAD is quite a powerful language, and it's free, and you can install it on your computer. So once you've got your printer built, well, I'm going to show you the printer in a second. I'm going to show you where I'm up to. There's another piece of software which came with my printer kit called Repetier Host, and I use that to take the project file from OpenSCAD and turn it into a slicer system which Repetier Host can then use to build up the object. So I want to walk through that process. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I want to walk through that process of doing a simple, a simple object, and using that simple object. I'm going to cut and paste out of that file I just showed you. Because it's a box, anyone can do a box. There's nothing really bad or cognizant about this box, which is basically this box but built differently. This thing has a lens in it, it has text, it has screw holes, it's got screw mounts, it's got PCB mounts, it's got all sorts of things in it. So it's got a little bit of stuff, but the process is exactly the same. There's nothing in that box that you couldn't recreate in a few seconds with a fair bit of, a little bit of practice. So what the hell, I'm going to release the code. Now I'm going to release it under the GNU license, so use it at your own risk. I take no liabilities, and I just want, if you use it in your project, give me some credit. You just link back to this video. That'd be cool. Alright, so let's move on. So where we're up to is we've introduced you to OpenSCAD. We've showed you where to download it from. I need to introduce you to Repetier Host at the end. So let's walk through the process of using the 3D printer, and I'm going to switch cameras at this point. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the setup of my computer via a USB cable to my 3D printer. So it's a Windows system hooked via USB to the 3D printer. Well, it's a pretty hot day, so what we're going to do, I've had to change my shirt. We're going to break this video up in a couple of parts because what I've done so far is I've shown you how I'm hooked up to my 3D printer. We've got the software that we use to design things, which is in my case, I've got a couple of pieces of software. But I've started with OpenSCAD. I also use SolidWorks for other things, but I don't specifically use SolidWorks, exclusively. I use a couple of different pieces of software to get my familiarization up. SolidWorks is a commercial product that is quite expensive. It's $10,000 if you're a commercial organization. And if you're a student, you can get a student license under your university, which costs the university quite a lot of money. I have a student license, so I only use it when I'm doing university work. Other than that, I use OpenSCAD, which is free. So let's assume that you're in my position where you've got very little money. OpenSCAD's a really good option. There are others. There's all sorts of online options. There's a thing out there called Tinkercad, which kids use, but it's actually quite powerful. You can use that. You can use all sorts of things. The point is that once you've completed your design, you export your design into what's called an STL file. And that STL file is what's used by the printer. Now, I'm going to take you through this whole process. So part 2 will be, we're going to start a new project from scratch. I've decided I'm going to cut and paste the bits I need out of what I showed you in this part rather than type them out, because there's nothing worse than watching someone type out a bunch of crap. And what I will do is I will release that sketch, that SCAD. I will release that as a link somewhere. I don't know yet how that's going to work, but I'll somehow make that happen. It's not going to be a terribly big SCAD. It's probably going to be about 100 odd lines, give or take a few. We've only literally got a few dimensions. We've got an X, Y, and Z dimension, so we need to know how tall it is, how wide it is, and how long it is. So we've got tall, long, and wide, 3 dimensions, X, Y, Z. Well, X is wide, Z is tall, and X is wide, Z is tall, and Y is long. We've got some supports which are great because we can show you how to integrate the support. What we do is we build one and we copy it into the 4 corners. So that's quite neat. We can show you how we do that. So we do it once, we translate the position of the head, and we do it again. We translate the position of the head, we do it again, we translate, and we do it again. So we can just build one and then we just put it where we need it and rotate it as we need to. It's kind of cool. It's yeah, it's kind of cool. You'll see how we do that. So what this means is I'm going to teach you how to build some modular code, and because it's modular, it has objects and properties, and it'll have methods that act on them. The properties will be the measurements, the X, Y, and the Z, and the thickness. We need to know how thick the walls of this thing are going to be, so there'll be a thickness as well. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do an X, Y, Z, and we're going to do thick, and we're literally going to do offset for the standoffs for the PCB support. So that's really all we should need. I guess we could say that the PCB supports will need some kind of a measurement for the hypotenuse of the support, the triangular piece, because then it's just a 90-degree triangle from there. So it's not going to be a problem in terms of what we do. In fact, I think that it's just a triangle. I think there's a thing in the SCAD called triangle that we can use. So we're gonna walk through all of that. So stay tuned for part 2. I want you to make good decisions, do good things. I want you to support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com. You can get in there and order some merchandise. If you are interested in these series of videos, why don't you subscribe? If I can get some subscriptions, it'll push my overall rankings for people to find me up a bit. I'm not looking to be, you know, a YouTube star. That's not what I'm about. I'm giving back to YouTube, so I don't really care whether people find this or not. But if people do find it and use it, well, you know what? It's how I've given back, and that's the intention. So I don't want it to be buried, but it's not about me being a YouTube star either. It's not about that. Alright, so just like and subscribe to the video. Please support the company that I'm setting up. The more support I get for that, the more good it'll do in the community. It's being set up as a community. Don't get me wrong, it's there to earn a profit. It's got to feed us. It's there to earn that. But it's also going to do a lot of good for the planet. And it's a model that shows how capitalism does work. And you know, you might think capitalism is a bad word. I've got to tell you, it's not. There are ways that capitalism works. And we can have another session about how that happens some other time. But it only works when the goals of the organisation have a community focus. That's when it does work. If it's all about profit, it doesn't. It doesn't work if capitalism is all about profit. And our company's not like that. Our company is more about the community. But we'll get into that some other time. So in terms of this video, hope you got an idea of where we're going, what's next after you've built your 3D printer, how you connect it up. Obviously for me it's a USB cable. It's the easiest way to do it. Just plug in a USB cable and your computer should find the printer. If the control board has what my control board has, which is the plug and play chip, the computer will find it and it'll just work. That said, the plug and play chip is called an FTDI, a USB chip, FTDI chip. There'll be a driver for that. Make sure you get the right driver for the printer. You know, usually they will give it to you on, well, on mine it came on a stick with the kit. I didn't find that until very late in the build. Had I found it, I would have found the instructions for building the printer too. So that would have been very handy to have looked on. I thought it was a freebie stick. I didn't. There was nothing to tell me to look on there until it was all over. So let me recommend that if you get a USB stick with your kit, plug it in and look at what software and what instructions are on the stick, because there were a lot of helpful things on there that I would have used. All right. Good decisions, good things. Like and subscribe. Maybe turn on notifications if you want to see more of my posts. We're going to come up with a part 2 to this series, and we're going to walk through using OpenSCAD, and then the Repetier host will be part 3, where we take our SCAD, our exported STL file, and turn it into something on the printer. And we're going to actually show that physically happening. Oh, I promised you to show you what the end result's actually going to look like. Well, let's do that real quick. This is a little project board that I built. Got a bunch of wires and crap underneath, and it's just not easy to plug that into something and use it. So what I built was this, and this is what we're going to be building, this little project box. You can see it's got the 4 triangular standoffs in the corner. It's got a gap to accept the plug. And it just sits into it and clips in. I just clipped it into the thing, and you can see the end result. It just sits in there. It accepts the plug from the programming unit. That's the programming unit, and that comes in, plugs into that, and Bob's your auntie. And that's the full thing. And that box, I could have extended it to accept a support for that too. There could be some future, but I wasn't getting that fancy. I just wanted a box to contain that, so that when I built it, I wasn't going to short all this multitude of wires. See all those wires? They're all exposed, and you don't want them sitting across something and shorting. So it sits in the box, and it's not exposed, and that's my test board, and it's all done. You know, that's neat. That's a neat solution. And that just sits there like that, and away we go. Righto, so let's get on with that. Good decisions, good things. Like and subscribe. Support nightglobemanufacturing.com for merchandise, which in fact is our little NGEMs. That's all we're selling at this point, and that's all we need to sell. We need to sell over 1 million of them, so let's get them out there. And if we can get that happening, there's going to be jobs, there's going to be premises, there's going to be all sorts of things flowing out of that. And I just can't tell you what that would mean to us as a family, you know, our little family here. Okay, thank you.